everyone. Welcome back to Open Door. Today, we're talking with a good friend of mine, Adriana Cebotar. Adriana has a really inspiring story that I'm just excited for you to hear. But she's also someone who's lived that faked expression, fake it till you make it. And I mean that in a good way. She comes from super humble beginnings, and she's described just her journey through tons of grit, perseverance, and is someone who's making very consequential decisions today. I love that her story helps us see that the qualifications we think we need aren't those that really matter. And in fact, she's built her entire career on relationship building, asking the dumb questions in the room on purpose, and synthesizing messy information into clarity. I'm stoked for you to hear this one, so let's get into it. So Adriana, welcome to Open Door.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So currently, you're a product manager deciding which AI features get built. Your degree is in multimedia communications, and you started in music. So a very diverse background. How did that all happen?
Yeah, it's funny because on paper it doesn't make any sense, but I think in reality it actually makes total sense. First, just to call out that any product person will not have a degree in product. There is no such degree, so you don't go to school for product management. You know, most product professionals either grow into that
Hmm.
from other disciplines, or it's there's courses and boot camps and things of that nature. But when I think about products and 15, almost coming up on 15 years of total tech experience, with a good chunk in product, one of the best skills and necessary skills in a good product person is learning to understand people. And so good judgment, good intuition, learning how to understand people are fundamental and just the core of what a good product leader will bring to the table.
Hmm.
So I went back to communications. Like, my training in communications gave me a really solid way of looking at messaging. Who is my audience? Do I have the clarity in what I'm trying to communicate?
Hmm.
What are the signals that I'm getting from the people? Like, all of these things are easily translatable into what I do now, right? So the application is certainly there. Not to mention, of course, the obvious things, right? How do you collaborate? How do you play into the group dynamics and to leadership and to all of those things that I was trained on as part of my degree or my education. Um, so that's that. And then music, is kind of a whole separate layer. And you're a musician, so I don't have to explain too much, but I think
I
you'll
get it.
find
Yeah.
yourself in, music taught me discipline.
Hmm.
Music taught me to recognize patterns. Music taught me to read into signals. Like, when you perform or write a song, you are constantly feeding off of those signals. You're
Hmm.
constantly watching for what your audience is, feeding back to you. Like, what's that energy? And so,
Yeah, that's true.
again, it translates into product thinking to the T almost, because we have to understand our users. We have to read into the signals. We have to understand what the business product problems are, and then be able to connect those. So when I started my first kind of opportunity in the product space, one of the things that someone taught me really quickly is, because at first you're like, you want to be like the engineer in the room who
Yeah.
speaks engineering, and you just feel all an imposter about it, right? And someone told me, like, Adriana, if they wanted to hire another engineer, they would have just done that. You have a different role. And that kind of stuck with me, because I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean then, right? And so, again, I'm very new to the space, and I'm trying to really understand beyond the tasks of what I do, like, what's the core unique value that I bring.
Hmm.
Um, and I started focusing on becoming the person who connects the dots, right? Like, translating what the users need, what the business is asking for, and how technology can bring it all together and
Hmm.
provide solutions. And so that sort of thinking. Now with AI just brings everything into a more complex sort of way. But with AI is because I think your question is really kind of like, I'm making decisions around what AI features are being built. It's not much different than making decisions what features are getting built. It's just getting done faster.
Hmm.
So because production is so much cheaper now, the question that product asks fundamentally is the most important it's ever been, which is not can we build it? Yeah, you can build anything these days. Should we build this? Is it
Hmm.
the right thing? What problem does it solve? How is it going to actually change user behavior, right? And so all of those things come into the product scope. Um, but yeah, this is kind of how when I think about my evolution, I don't think it was a pivot or a detour. I think it was training and preparation to where I am today.
That's awesome. Thanks for I can completely agree because I have a very interesting background as well. And you kind of see how all of those things kind of
Yeah.
made who you are today,
Yeah.
right? This is a perfect segue. One of the things that you just mentioned is I can completely identify with this when people say something early on in your career, different parts of your career that stick with you. You know, you mentioned that gentleman said if they would have wanted to hire another engineer, they would have done that. You're in the room for a reason,
Yeah.
right? And so I remember just in talking to you, you spoke about a moment early on in your career where a developer asked you to open the command line and you
Yeah.
didn't know what that was, right?
Yeah.
And I said in the opening that you have this lived expression, fake it till you make it. But really, you and I have gone back and forth on this. That's
Yeah.
not the whole story. Your principle that you live by is face it until you make it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So tell me the real story. And when you're in the room and now you're making AI product decisions, does that feeling ever come back, right? Of like, oh man, I'm in this new place where I'm taking risks
Mhm.
and I am capable. I can face it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. First of all, fundamentally disagree with the fake it till you make it approach.
Hmm.
I don't think. I think it's dishonest to what not just to my story, but generally to what people actually go through in
Mm,
those fake it till you make it situations. um, because I didn't fake anything. I faced it, right? Like
mm,
I didn't fake that I knew how to open the command, that I didn't know how to open the command line. I admitted it, and that's facing it, right? And I
mm,
cried over it. But like this, back to the story, just to do a quick recap. Like I was young, 21, first career, first job, um, first real world job in tech, nothing that I knew about tech or technology, right? Before, up until that point, my computer usage was limited to like writing papers and then, doing spreadsheets and things like that. They're very basic. So I am like between like month 1 to 3, very much still within my first 90 days at the new job. And one of the SDETs comes over, and I don't remember the context of his ask, but he goes, "Can you open the command line and I'll show you blah, blah, blah." And I looked at him and I'm like, feeling like a complete idiot, right? Um, and so it was one of those moments of like, oh, like I don't know so much, and I'm gonna face that with the best grace that I can, like graciously admit.
mm,
Um, I went out the balcony, I faced the Puget Sound, I gave it a good cry. I moved on. I came back and I Googled the crap out of the whole command line, what it does, right? And how you get there. But the point of the story is that that was sort of like one of those like early on moments that um, pushed me into just admitting that I will
mm.
be uncomfortable, and that I have to lean into that. I have to lean into being uncomfortable because eventually you learn. Like there's
Sure,
nothing wrong with not knowing.
sure. Yeah.
And so facing that until you making it is really has been the motto of my entire life.
Mm,
Today, I don't think much has changed in the regard of like I don't know everything, and I
mm,
think anyone who says is probably foolish, who says that they know everything, right? But I think I'm just so much more comfortable with saying I'm willing to face it until
mm, mm.
I'll be the first to admit I don't know, I don't have knowledge in this domain. Tell me
Sure,
more, right? Like
sure.
adopting a curious mindset and
Yeah.
being willing to just lean into that discomfort until it starts to make sense, right? But the feeling changed because I think just the mere perspective. I was 21, and I am 21 for the 25th time. I don't remember, but like changed a little, and so I think some of that confidence, started to it baked in over the years to where like I am okay in my skin when I say I don't know something. And
Sure.
AI especially is just so new to so many.
Mm,
I think there is almost like an expectation that you don't know everything and that
Sure.
we're all in this together. So it's different and yet somewhat the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of what you're speaking to is you've built some mental resiliency and grit over time,
Yeah,
right? And a
exactly.
lot of us business owners and people in the tech world, or even not in the tech world, are grappling with having to try to understand this new technology and apply it,
Yeah,
right? And it requires an element of humility and tapping into our own story of just
yeah.
knowledge is power. And when you don't have that knowledge, you feel a little powerless, right? So I love the face it till you make it. I think that's absolutely part of your story. Well, you've faced it long enough that you're now a manager of a team that's rethinking how
Mhm.
products and engineering and design work together now that AI has compressed timelines, right? All of these pieces are working together. So I'm curious in that world, what's actually breaking in those workflows right now? Because you mentioned that your background led you up to be able to connect those dots. And I absolutely agree with you. I've worked with you in the past as well. I think that is a skill of yours. I'm curious what you're seeing.
AI is changing the landscape very fast. Look, every week there's a new model and a new agentic approach, and it can be really scary actually and intimidating if you look at how it's shifting the way we work
Mm,
across industries. By the way, right? Like tech is one impacted, but it has a ripple effect everywhere.
mm,
I personally choose not to have a doomsday kind of attitude about it because I think we've been through changes like that, and I think we talked a little bit about it um, before, but it's one of those things that doesn't happen overnight. And so, to give you a practical application of what we're seeing right now, so I have a few Scrum teams and product people, I have engineering people, I have designers, data scientists, and we're all figuring out how do we now use AI as an amplifier to the
sure,
individual disciplines, right?
sure.
One of the things that we're seeing that's like kind of a night and day contrast, the timeline that you go from idea to something tangible.
Mm,
So like if before product would spend a few weeks up front to just really work through the concept,
mm,
land that, have a full-fledged PRD or some sort of scope document, then bring engineers and everyone along, right? Then you kind of wait for it to see the light of day. Um, that is that is being gone in progress, right?
mm,
Now we're moving into a space where you can go from a concept or from an idea to an actual prototype or a proof of concept even
mm,
in hours, depending on the complexity of the initiative. It could be a few days, it could be a week, it could be an hour, but it is substantial. I mean, we're talking, and it's not the full-fledged thing, but you're looking at something that is like a visual of what you had in mind.
mm.
The difference is like hours or a week to
Sure,
months, right? And
sure.
so
Yeah.
that's one of those things. And so what that looks like in the everyday, we're everything is applied and amplified, every discipline. So if product does the research, like all the discovery phase, right, the function
Mm,
of research and market trends in the industry, like of user research and synthesizing that, right, and then
sure, sure.
all of the signals and internal telemetry, all of that collected, synthesized, analyzed is happening so much faster than it was before. Again, it would take weeks to months. Now it's
Sure.
days to weeks or days
Yeah.
to week, depending on like if you have all the right inputs readily available. But every discipline is figuring out how do we now use the tools available to amplify, to expedite the things that could be automated or
Sure,
augmented or
sure.
just fully outsourced to AI, right, through an autonomous agent.
Mm,
And instead, it frees up the time for us to do things that are uniquely human. Like I said, right? Like, is this the right thing? What problem is it really solving? So it gives us time to be creative and to do
hmm.
the uniquely human things.
Sure, sure. I mean, I remember when I met you when we were working together, there was a big shift happening in the developer world already. And a lot of that was coming from a waterfall approach, now more into an agile process.
Mm, yeah.
And you and I were seeing how developers are trying to catch up with that. And like any change, some embrace it, some are mediocre about it, some are like, no, this is the way it is. And now we're in a completely different disruption process, right? And so I think a lot of that, to your point, is connecting those dots and becoming okay with change. That's a part of it. I'm curious, when your team specifically hits a problem that no one understands, right?
Mm.
What do you do first? How do you come together as a team to embrace that? Walk me through that process.
That's a great question, and it's layered. I think if there is a problem that no one understands, is are we looking at the right problem, or what
Mm,
who defined it in the first place, right?
yeah, good.
Because problem statements inherently have to be clear, and they are driven by the product function. Like, we are the ones who define the
Mm,
problem statements,
mm,
and we do that from, like I mentioned, the functions of research and listening to the voice of the customer, and
mm,
signals of, whether it's market or like internal signals of their own usage if there is an
sure.
existing product. And so you take all of those pieces to inform your roadmap and to
Mm,
inform problem statements. Then there's the business side that kind of tells us, okay, we're seeing, a marginal drop in revenue here or there, or like we're seeing churn or whatever the problem is on the business side.
sure.
You're trying to really rationalize, because it's usually a pull. It's usually a okay, this makes sense because of this, or this makes sense because of this, right?
Sure, sure.
And putting those two again back to connecting the dots and like using critical thinking to see the problem holistically is how you get to it. Now,
Hmm,
once you, so I don't recall, problems can be complex, but they still have to be clear.
mm,
I think if you have a problem that is just nobody understands, the problem maybe is like, let's take a step back and what are we trying to really solve for here,
sure,
and
sure.
where did this come from, right? So my approach is generally, I'll work with design to do maybe some, or like the research team, the R&D, and get all of those pieces together to where I have a clearly defined problem, which I think the key is always validate that. As a product leader, you're also I think we have to be very self-aware in that something may
Mm,
make sense to us, but you really may not make sense to like the other 25
sure,
people. So like,
sure.
go ask around, go make sure this reads well, and like, does that land? And so then when you bring people together, it tends to make sense.
Hmm.
It tends to land, right? And then people will have good questions, and kind of you go deeper and you discover gaps in the process. So that's how I generally go about it.
Yeah, it's a very people approach. I like that, right? Because I think
Awesome.
oftentimes people feel I can do this on my own. I have all the tools at my disposal. Realistically, it takes a team of people. So
Yes,
I
always.
one of the things, working through problems isn't easy.
Mm,
And I feel you're uniquely prepared because of your background. And when
mm.
I mean your background, I'm referring specifically to your personal story, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you spoke about this a bit, but you have a non-traditional background, I'd say, right? So I'd love for you to just kind of give us the cliff notes briefly about the story of coming to the US and how that prepared you to be so resilient in the tech world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I was born in Moldova, Eastern Europe, a very small country. And I was born and raised there until I was 17. I went to college at 15, to music college. I was admitted with this full scholarship, having passed the all the requirements, and like you have 7 or 8 exams and whatever.
Not surprised, not surprised.
Thanks. Well, listen, my parents dropped me off at 5 years old at music specialized school before I could read letters. And it was like all teachers were like Russian speaking, and we did not speak Russian at home. And they're like, "You'll figure it out." And so, what, right? But I did. But like after all that training, right? 5 years till 15. That's a solid 10 years of like everyday grind, right? So anyway, I went to college at 15, did 2 years,
Mm,
and then an opportunity came about. And I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but I came across an individual, or a story really, like in a brochure. I was commuting back from college. I was going home, because I was a commuter from capital city to my suburb, which is where I grew up. And I read the story about this guy who was from Moldova, and he was just this extraordinary student at this American university. And I'm like, wow, like, how do you become that? Right? Like, that was such a
Mm,
mysterious thing. Like, I had never left the country by that point in my life. Like, to me, going to a different place, or like, that was such an alien thought.
mm,
And reading that story really intrigued something in me, where I was like, what do you have to do and who do you have to be to
mm,
become that, right? Like someone like that. The mission became, how do I not just survive to be here, but thrive in terms of actually getting an American education? That became
sure.
like, a kid from Moldova, like, who am I? Like, how did I get here, right? To, I am here now.
Yeah.
You better make it work. Like, there,
Yeah.
the sense of shame and embarrassment at the thought that I could go back and, like, I already missed my, junior year of college by just coming here. That thought alone was just so unbearable for me that
Mm.
I knew I had to work whatever it took, however many hours, to make it work. And
You
now
had to face it.
I had to face it, and I had to make it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that because I feel that that grit and who you are is still who you are today,
Yeah,
right?
probably.
And especially in product development, it's one problem at a time, right? Because
Sometimes
the
multiple, but man,
overall yeah, yeah, exactly, but it's this element of one thing at a time or else the whole project can kinda kill you, right? So and overwhelm you. No, I appreciate that. I love your story because I think it speaks to who you are and how you're wired,
mm,
right? And oftentimes people can look at you and say, "Oh, this person is just wired that way or uniquely positioned." But I think to your point, you said you read in a magazine. What was the gentleman's
the
name?
brochure. Uh,
Yeah.
Dimitri, well, Dumitru is how you would say it, but yeah.
Yeah, Dimitru. Now you get to be that Dimitru. You get to be Adriana, someone else. Jenny, my wife, calls people like that expanders, people that you see that
Mm,
show you what's possible,
what a
right?
wise wife you have.
Yeah, well, she is the better half, I must say. But
That's
but
right.
it's true. You see these things and they expand of what's possible. And I think you now, that was you said August 17th, 2007, is that correct?
That's right.
So, April, whatever it is today, the 24th of, 2026,
Yeah.
someone might see this and be inspired to say, I can do
No,
that. That's possible as well, right? I love that. Thanks for your background. Now, getting back to the tech space of how those things prepared you for now. You said that agile is waterfall speed now, right? So what does that mean for someone running a small team who's trying to figure out how AI fits into their business?
yeah, I think, again, I want to be sensitive because waterfall still applies to certain industries and in certain contexts, because
Sure,
the risk is exponentially higher, and you can't really deliver, any shippable bodies of work at the increments of what agile as a framework calls for.
sure.
But in tech, as I sit, right,
Mm,
agile is definitely slow. Um, Everything is being rethought in terms of operational workflow and everyday tasks, right? The ceremonies of the agile methodologies, like, do we still refine tickets the same way? Do we still run our backlog planning the same way? No, like, that, those things are starting to change shape. I'm not saying we have all the answers by any means,
sure,
but we also are not ignoring the fact that if it took the product person, the product manager or the product owner, hours of writing all of the user stories they needed to write in whatever their backlog is, Jira, Azure DevOps, whatever the tool
sure,
of choice. Well, now AI will do that for you. Now, if you have Claude, or if you have Copilot, right, and it's connected to your backlog, like, you just tell it what, or give it the spec, even better, give it the product
mm,
requirements document. It'll write the stories. It'll
mhm,
write the acceptance criteria. So, like, everything is faster. Um, but I would say, where I've seen where I've seen the downside of it is that
sure,
people start trusting it too much, to where they
uh,
don't do the due diligence to check.
sure, sure,
Because while AI is wonderful at making everything fast, it's just as wonderful at making everything or something fast wrong. Like,
sure,
right? So,
sure,
we have to always lean into the human aspect of like critical thinking and like checking and being diligent about
Yeah.
but I've seen that like literally happening on my team, and so I I'm all for speed, but not at the cost of quality. There
Yeah.
are exceptions where, hey, we're building something and we know it's scrappy inherently, and it's a small thing, it's a small initiative or experience, right, that we want to put on the product to let users test and test the waters, and we know it's going to be half baked, but functional enough, right? Like that, but that is by design in and of itself. But when you're setting out to say we're building this cool thing, but we're just going to be sloppy throughout it because AI makes it faster and we don't check our work, that's just
Got it. Got it. And I was just going to ask you too. Thanks for defining that. Was, everything's getting faster, but what things do we need to slow down, right? I think this is a perfect segue into, even, mentioning the fact that you're not a developer and all these pieces, and even that developer mentioning if we wanted another engineer, we would have hired that, right? But
right.
we hired you. So what's something that you understand about AI because you're not an engineer that
Mm,
your technical colleagues miss?
mm. You know, I it's a great question. I don't think that the technical colleagues or like my engineers peers will miss it necessarily, but what I bring faster maybe, and like the angle that I default to as opposed to what an engineer would typically, is I don't run at the problem looking through a technical lens first. Like I don't default to like looking at it through the technical feasibility first.
Sure.
I when I look at AI, because your question really roots in AI, right?
Correct.
When I look at AI and AI solutions and AI experiences, my first thought is, okay, how is it going to be trust? Is this the is it solving the right problem? We have to know what the problem is solving. Is it going to be trusted and is it going to be adopted? Like some those are just off the top of my head. Like
Hmm.
those are the three things that I will default to and lean into that I've noticed engineers because they're very engineering minded, right? Like they come in, they immediately think through technical feasibility. Like how would we
Hmm.
build that? What model
Hmm.
would do that? Is it an LLM? Is it a small language? Like so I think that's where the core difference is I look at right away like the marriage between user, business, what technology will do, and then layering that with are we solving the right thing? Will it be something that the users can trust and will
Hmm.
they adopt it? What's going to incentivize them to change their behavior, right? Especially in my space, like I serve recruiters, like I build technology for recruiters. These are people who find jobs for other people. Like it's a huge responsibility and a sense of pride and honor in that.
Hmm.
And so when I think about my users of my tools, they have their workflows, they have their built-in routines, right? Like it's anything I do new, I have to be so considerate about is this the right thing and will they use it? Like
Yeah.
what's going to push them into changing their behaviors
Hmm.
because they hate change. Like it's
Hmm.
disruptive to everyone hates change.
It's true. Yeah.
And so the thoughtfulness that comes into that, honestly, whether it's AI or not, but
Hmm.
especially when it comes to AI because it's fresh and because it's the buzzword and it's the hype and it's the unknown. And like you said, people fear what they don't know.
Hmm.
You have to be so much more thoughtful and so much more thorough in how you approach those problems. And I think again, like that's where we balance each other out. Like engineering comes through the angle of can we build it and how do we build it? And I come through the angle of like, what are we building and why are we building? And is it the
Mm.
right thing to build it? And you know, all of the scrutinizing questions around that basically.
Sure. No, thank you. I love how you defined your specific role and where you're at in that equation, right? Because I think it's the way, again, your brain operates and works is you're coming from a user perspective and the conduit and connecting to business needs, technical needs, but also what does that end user want,
Yeah.
right? So, and to your point, people hate change. Even if they say they love it, we hate it, right? We're creatures of habit, most of us
Don't
anyways.
pivot well. Most
Yeah, exactly. Of course. Well, and of course, we can't talk about AI without talking about the ways it's shaping company workforces, right? Especially with you being in a product that is helping recruiters find talent. So we're seeing lots of tech companies lay off people. And if you're someone who's been laid off or you feel like your job might be at risk, how do you stay resilient during this time? Or what advice would you give to someone who isn't feeling very resilient right now,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Or who, how do they adapt when things are shifting so rapidly?
Yeah.
Technology, funding, all of those sort of things. So either they find themselves, how do I enter this space? Or they find themselves fearing that they're going to be left behind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your perspective is with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that question so much. I mean, I'm not shying away from sharing my story in
Mm,
this context, which is that before this wonderful company I'm working for now, I've been with Microsoft for almost 14 years, actually a month shy,
mm,
both in consultant capacity, right, as a vendor, working through wonderful companies like yourself, like Red Door and other ones, but also as a full time employee. And so that journey came to an end because of a mass layoff, and my role was impacted, and many of my wonderful colleagues were impacted as well in May of last year. Was it last year? I don't remember anymore. I think it was last year.
You're a parent. You
I
have that
don't know.
grace. I didn't even, I had to ask my wife how old I was turning on Wednesday, so you're good.
I do not judge you. And so, it's very much a topic that hurts
Mm,
in many ways, and I think the fear and the anxiety around it are totally valid.
sure.
But my response is anxiety is actually a good response to the nervous system. It tells you that hey, you need to do something. Now it can go an extreme direction, which is where we don't want it to go. But generally speaking, right, if you see a fire, you don't go through to it because there's something to avoid, like pain or death. So it's a response that it's necessary. So if we're feeling anxious, I'd say let's lean into that. That would be my first thing. Like the first step is let's lean into that. Like
Mm,
why are we feeling what we're feeling? And I am not going to try to play psychologist here, but these are some of the steps I've taken, and it's helped a lot. Like
mm,
I had to process the fact that I was a top performer, the fact that I had strong programs going and this and that, and it didn't matter because the business pivoted, right? And so just
yeah,
nothing else mattered, right?
yeah.
But you have to grapple with the reality that not everything that's happening around you, one, is about you,
Mm, that's good.
two, is because of you, and three, maybe it's for you.
Mm,
Maybe it's for you to react to. Maybe it's for you to have a wake up call. Maybe it's for you to become uncomfortable again. Or maybe to pivot, maybe to rediscover yourself. So I know a lot of people are feeling all the feels that I've felt, and many have.
mm,
And I'd be lying if I said, I think we're past that. I really don't think we're past that. I
mm,
think the truth is we are leaning into probably a continuation of a rough season where we're going to see more layoffs and redefining of jobs, and some jobs lost, like some jobs
shit.
being completely absorbed by AI, and automated and just fully you know outsourced to that. Now, what do you do? Like, let's say you're in a position, you have a job, like, I don't know, I'm just gonna data entry. Let's just face it, right? That's in the reports. I'm not making it up. Data entry, like, is not going to survive much longer. Whoever still has data entry specialists.
Mm,
And I don't mean to again instill fear, but it's a reality we have to grapple with. That
sure.
a lot of jobs, this is just one example, are going to be absorbed by AI taking over. What I think is the most productive thing to do is to first just find some good trusted mentors in your life and people who you look up to and people who
That's
could
good. Yeah.
speak truth and speak courage and speak hope into your life. There's nothing more valuable than that. Safe space. And then come up with an action plan. Assess where do you want to go? Okay, this happened to you, but what are you going to happen? What are you going to happen to? Are you going to be the author of your next chapter, or are you just going to stand by and wait for
Hmm.
another thing to happen to you, right? Um, and keep in mind, like, knowing my personality so far, like I'm not going to be a cuddler around it. Like, this is, you asked me my opinion, and I'm very very transparent. Like, go have a pity party, go cry, go do what you will, in healthy proportions hopefully, and then shake it off, right? You have to find your way back to this is reality, and it's not just me, and it's not about me, and it's not because of me.
Mm,
Maybe it's for me.
mm,
And again, circling back to face it, face it until you make it. Because we
mm,
all gone through some season, whether it's job related, whether it's personal life related, whether it's just been another industrial revolution that like our, ancestors have gone through. This is the fourth one. This is not new. We've been here as a humanity. We are resilient enough. We have what it takes to get through another massive change, but we just have to just toughen up and really face the fact that nobody owes me anything. The
mm,
universe doesn't owe me anything, and I have to just become the author of what I can control. Things
mm,
I can't control, I'm going to let them take care of themselves. But there's a lot of controllables that sit right in my command center. What do I do with those?
mm,
And so go through the exercise, look at people you're inspired by, ask yourself, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Like, what's possible? So much more is possible. By the way, we're talking a lot about the fear of AI taking jobs and whatnot, but it's creating so much opportunity.
true.
And this is where it's not talked about. Like, just
Yeah,
open YouTube. I don't even know
sure.
why the algorithm feeds me that. I'm not looking for it, but like, it's full of like 25 options to, make stay at home income. Like, it's creating so much opportunity. It's just never been an easier time to actually pick something up, to learn something new. You don't even have to pay for anything. You can learn everything for free. And so it takes a little bit of character shaping and a character building to go through this, but you have to go through this.
Mm, mm.
So
I
it's not a cuddly approach. I am not one to have, but I think it's the approach that works.
Yeah, and I think there's chasms, extremes on both sides,
100%.
but I think you have a very unique voice in this because you were someone that did get laid off, right?
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with you,
No.
but impacted you,
16,000 people.
right? Yeah, and I think too a lot of people are grappling with that fear. Either, oh my gosh, is my job going to be taken,
Yeah.
right? Or I'm looking for a role and I'm not sure where to go, where to pivot, right? And so I think a lot of this is, as I mentioned before, knowledge is power. And when you don't have that knowledge, you feel powerless. So to your point, data entry. What are things thinking about your specific role from a glasses half full perspective, right? That
Mhm.
you can leverage
Yep.
AI to be faster, right? And
Yep.
we've talked about this a lot. It's like, oh my God, AI is going to take my job. Well, it is going to take your job if you're not getting
Adopting AI.
adopting AI and understanding these tools,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think there's this element of glasses half full. Don't look at what's potentially going away. Look at what's coming.
Yes.
And we're in this phase now that we don't even know 2 weeks from now what sorts of things are going to be there.
100%.
So I love that approach. Face it till you make it. So, well, Adriana, I love your story. I'm just super glad you're here. My hope is that someone sees this and they're able to identify and connect with it in a way that encourages them and propels them forward, right?
That's my,
So I love it. I love your boldness in this field. And I think it's something that everyone, including myself, can learn from. So, for
thank you.
those of you watching, thanks for being here. Do me a favor in this conversation. If it's moved you in any way or if it's landed with you, share it with someone who needs to take those bold next steps, regardless if you feel you're ready or not. I think Adriana's story can inspire just about anyone. I know it's inspired me. And we're constantly going through shifts and changes. So, Adriana, thanks for being here, sharing your story and where you're at now. It's very inspiring. And we'll see you next time on Open Door.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thanks for being here.